Well, hello, seniors. It's a privilege to be able to speak with you today about substance use disorder. I usually present live, so please bear with me on my technology skills. So my name is Corey Councill. I'm a 1987 graduate of Franklin County High School. I live in Frankfort, and I'm founder of FAD, Families Against Deadly Drugs. We're a nonprofit advocate for education, prevention, treatment, and long-term recovery. Our main message is that substance use disorder is about a chemistry, not character. I'd like to show you a short video and then tell David's journey.
What is addiction? It's also called a substance use disorder. Over 20 million people nationwide suffer from addiction. 1 in 7 people will experience addiction at some point in their life. Scientists first began to understand addiction as a brain disorder back in the 1950s. Doctors Olds and Milner, in laboratory studies of rats, found the parts of the brain affected by addiction. But then in 1994, Doctors Volkoff and Shelbert, top neuroscientists, ran PET scans of the brain that showed the effects of substance use disorders. And like other diseases, these scans showed it affected tissue function. So there are 2 main parts of the brain affected by drug use: the limbic system and the cortex. The limbic system, located deep within the brain, is responsible for our basic survival instincts. So when you do essential things to stay alive, like eat, drink, find shelter, build relationships, or care for your young, your brain reinforces behaviors that cause the release of dopamine from this region. That reward for surviving is also transmitted to the amygdala and hippocampus, which records a memory of that feeling, so we seek it again. This is our survival hardwiring. Addiction also affects this area, up here. That's the prefrontal cortex, which is what separates us from other animals. And this is where decision-making and impulse control live. When drugs or alcohol are used, they activate the very same dopamine process in the survival center. And when use is repeated, that substance can hijack that part of the brain. This hijacker changes the brain and weakens this system to make it believe that the primary need for survival is the drug. In hijacking the brain, it can usurp those primary motivations: food, water, shelter, relationships, and protecting our young. And the hijacker needs more and more of the substance to activate the same level of reward or feeling of pleasure, causing the brain tissue to become increasingly damaged with continued drug use. So why don't all people who use alcohol or drugs become addicted? There are factors that contribute to the development of a substance use disorder. They include individual factors like your genes, your age of exposure, and then environmental factors like drug availability. But there is good news. Addiction is preventable. Key factors that aid in preventing addiction can be categorized into 2 parts: risk factors and protective factors. Protective factors range from parental involvement, programs that improve self-control, limiting availability, and increasing attachment to your community. Another key element in preventing substance use disorders is to delay when use begins. Put simply, prevention is about delaying the onset of first use. In the adolescent brain, where brain tissue is more vulnerable, the hijacker is more prone to weaken the brain and plant itself as a disease. Those with substance use disorders commonly initiate first use much earlier, between 12 and 18 years old, which increases the likelihood of the hijacker taking hold. But if the hijacker does take hold, addiction is treatable. Advancements have been made in assessments, treatment programs, recovery supports, and medications to treat addiction. Brain scans show that once in recovery, the tissue in the limbic system and cortex can get better. With your help, we can expand these innovations to help millions of individuals and families and ensure that addiction is treated as the medical issue that it is. Together, we can solve this. Join us.
So this is my oldest son, David. He went to Peaks Mill Elementary, Good Shepherd School, and graduated Franklin County High School class of 2011. 4 years ago, I had not my kid syndrome. David was struggling with addiction, and I didn't even know it. I was the father that always bragged about my boys, tried to teach them right from wrong, recorded the band performances from the top of the press box, chaperoned the band's Myrtle Beach trip David's senior year, and man, was I proud on college move-in day, but I was ignorant to what drugs do to the brain. I wasn't aware of the opioid epidemic. I was uneducated about substance use disorder. I had never heard of Casey's Law, never considered how dangerous prescription drugs were since they were ordered by a doctor, and I had convinced myself that David knew better than to do hard drugs. Drug overdoses happen in other cities, to other families, not my kid. At 11 years old, David got his black belt in Taekwondo, which teaches discipline and confidence. Should I have early concern about drugs and alcohol? Not my kid. When David was 12 years old, I took him and his younger brother Charles to Pascagoula, Mississippi for Hurricane Katrina cleanup. We spent that whole spring break helping the community with debris removal, grass cutting, weed eating, donating clothes, and feeding the residents while sleeping in a damaged warehouse in bunk beds made with 2x4s that a local church had put together for volunteers like us. So that meant no PlayStation, no movies, no iPads, no Netflix, no TV. But it did teach them compassion for others and that one person can truly make a difference. Could he use drugs to make himself feel better? Not my kid. As a high school senior at Franklin County, he was the only person in the state of Kentucky to be selected to the U.S. Army All-American Marching Band, as well as lead trumpet and several other musical ensembles. David knew right from wrong, put others' needs ahead of his own, had a passion for music, and knew how much he was loved. A future IV drug user? Not my kid. David's disease of addiction started after having his wisdom teeth removed at age 18, the summer between graduation and college, and he fell for pain pills. As a scholarship trumpet performance major, he quickly spiraled out of control and flunked out of 2 state colleges after just 1 semester each. David went to jail for the first time within 1 year of high school graduation. And he would go to jail 3 more times, spending his 23rd birthday in jail, as well as that entire summer. This was not my kid. So in August of 2015, I got a call from David's employer saying that he was at UK hospital for suspected overdose. When I arrived, I saw this. He was strapped to a bed and on a ventilator. I was told he had jumped off a 3rd floor balcony, which broke his back. He got up, started running, and it took 4 firemen and 3 police officers to get him under control. I was stunned. This had to be rock bottom that everybody talks about, right? I had convinced myself that this would be his wake-up call. Not my kid. On March 19th, 2017, I got another call from David's employer saying that he had overdosed again and I needed to get to Lexington. Having not my kid syndrome, that just made me think he was at the hospital again, and I was angry. It wasn't until 15 minutes later that I got the second call that he had passed away. I don't remember the rest of the drive to Lexington that night until I pulled up and saw the coroner's van. So David died alone with a needle in his arm due to accidental acute overdose of cocaine and Xanax. They call it speedballing. That's when my education by hindsight began. So today marks 3 years, 11 months, and 18 days since David passed away, which to a bereaved parent, it's 1,451 days of heartbreak and what ifs. David should be 27 years old today, but he will be forever 23. So yeah, it was my kid, and it could be any one of you. David's untimely death taught me that addiction is not a moral or parental failure. It's about changes in the chemistry of the brain, not the character of the individual. So you guys are getting ready to transition to a job, trade school, military, or college, where a lot of you are going to be leaving home and the oversight of your parents. You'll think you're invincible, but your decisions matter. No one chooses to become an addict. It starts with a bad decision. So David's bad decision was taking more than the prescribed dosage of Percocet, which led to him taking other pills like Adderall, Ritalin, Vicodin, Xanax. Prescription pain medicines are very strong and addictive if used for more than 5 days in a row. Taking more than the prescribed dose actually accelerates the addictive properties. That's when David went to methamphetamine, cocaine, and eventually heroin. Under no circumstances should you take a pill not prescribed to you. It could be a death sentence. David passed away less than 5 years from the beginning of his so-called experimentation with pills. So in 2017, the year David passed away, we lost over 72,000 people and over 81,000 last year. That's more than one death every 8 minutes. So somebody else lost their child while I was telling David's journey. Please, please, I beg you, don't experiment with drugs or alcohol. Your brain continues to develop until age 25, and alcohol and drugs, including nicotine, severely affect your development and decision-making. Make your family proud of your decisions, not sad for the rest of their lives. Substance use disorder is defined as the persistent use of drugs and alcohol despite substantial negative consequences. This is caused by the changes in the chemistry of the brain. Got one more video.
Understanding substance use and abuse. Misuse of substances like alcohol and drugs is a growing problem in the U.S., and teens and young adults are most at risk, with half of all new drug users being under the age of 18, and 1 in 5 high school students having abused prescription drugs. Additionally, 1/3 of high school students currently use alcohol, 23% use marijuana, and 22% use all forms of tobacco combined. Decision-making in teens involves a chemical called dopamine in the brain's reward center. Dopamine helps transmit signals in the brain that make people feel happy. The number of brain receptors interacting with dopamine is higher in adolescence than at any other time of life. That means that when a teen is exposed to a reward, such as a compliment, the reward center reacts more strongly than it would for an adult. Also, being with friends increases the sensitivity to rewards and makes the already sensitive reward system even more sensitive. Feeling rewards more strongly and responding more intensely to what peers may think means that there are biological reasons for why teens sometimes decide to do things with their friends that they would never do on their own. This can be positive by encouraging friends to take on new challenges, but it can also lead to dangerous decisions, such as drug and alcohol use. Drug use and abuse can contribute to harmful short and long-term health risks. In fact, drug abuse can have long-term effects on a developing teenage brain. MRI scans of the brain have shown that people who have been using drugs for a long time have a smaller prefrontal cortex than people who have not been using drugs. The prefrontal cortex is the area where decision-making occurs. drug use can result in poor grades, memory loss, and social problems. A lot of us have an idea about what a person dependent on drugs looks like. However, anyone can suffer from this type of addiction. Addiction doesn't depend on income, job, age, race, or color. It is a disease of the brain that can happen to anyone. Drug dependency is when a person consumes alcohol or drugs regularly, despite the fact that it causes issues in their life and relationships with others. Get help if you need it. Encourage your friends to get help too. If you or someone you love is struggling with drug use or abuse, call 1-800-662-HELP or visit www.easyread.drugabuse.gov.
So, whether you have a relative or a friend with substance use disorder, there are plenty of resources to help. Casey's Law provides a means of intervening with someone over age 18 who is unable to recognize his or her need for treatment due to their impairment. This law will allow parents, relatives, and even friends to petition the court for treatment on behalf of the substance abuse impaired person. We also have the Angel program at many police departments that are beginning to help those with substance use disorder. In 2017, the Georgetown Police Department started their program, Operation Hope, and in April of 2020, the Frankfort Police Department joined as well. Angel program seeks to change the paradigm of how law enforcement deals with substance use disorder and provides a chance of recovery without arrest. So my last point is this. I want you to take a minute to think about your current possessions. So David left for college with 2 trumpets, a piccolo trumpet, a flugelhorn, trombone, laptop computer, refrigerator, PlayStation, sound system, couple guitars, personal items such as old sheet music, some of the books I had sent to him while he was in jail, toiletries, and a few zip drives with movies. That's all that was left. No trumpets or anything of value. Everything David had, he pawned for drugs. So I beg you, don't become a statistic in this drug epidemic. You are loved more than you know. And without you, every holiday, birthday, and yes, date of death will be like a prison sentence for your parents and the rest of your family. I did save my favorite video for last, so please bear with us for a moment, and I hope you get something out of this.
Number 8, Dwayne Harris.
Wow. Well, first, I want to thank my mom and my dad for always just showing me love all these years, believing in me. You know, I'm going to play here my last time tonight. And I want to go on and do great things. But I won't. Next year, I'm going to blow up my knee. I'll be prescribed opioid painkillers, and I'll become addicted. A couple years from now, I'm gonna overdose on heroin on the bathroom floor of a person I don't even know. But I want you all to know that tonight is one of the best moments of my life. Thank you.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth.
Well, I very much appreciate your time and attention to this very important topic. As you know, COVID-19 has disrupted all of our lives, but it's also marked a significant increase in overdose deaths this past year. Frankfort has seen a 50% increase in 2020, while Georgetown had an increase of 141%. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or need support for yourself or a family member. Thank you and good luck.